The Sky Over the Solomon Islands, 1943. A Japanese pilot in the cockpit of a Zero, one of the finest fighter pilots on the planet. Behind him lie China, Pearl Harbor, 2 years in which his plane did whatever it wanted with the enemy. His Zero is a miracle of maneuver. Light, nimble, it pulls a turn no American can follow. The whole art of the Japanese ace is built on one thing: drag the enemy into the merry-go-round, into the close-turning fight where what matters is who wheels around tighter, and destroy him there. For 3 years this worked flawlessly, and now toward him comes a new American fighter, big, heavy, with bent gull wings, the Corsair. The Japanese takes his position, prepares to start his usual merry-go-round, to catch the American in a turn. But the American doesn't enter the turn. He refuses to fight the way the Japanese wants at all. He drops from above, fires one short burst on the pass, and climbs away, gaining altitude the Zero can't reach. The Japanese wheels around to catch him in a maneuver, and there's no one to catch. The American is already higher and coming in from above again. And here begins the question we're here for today. How? The Japanese ace was better in close combat. His plane turned better. He could do what no one had taught the American. And still, he couldn't force the fight he was king of. Japanese pilots who survived this repeated the same bewilderment again and again. We turn better. We maneuver better. Why do they refuse to fight us fairly, face to face? Some Japanese commanders blamed the Americans' cowardice, afraid of a fair fight, they said. Others thought the enemy's new plane was simply faster. Others still thought it was numbers. All three guesses were incomplete. No one saw the truth, because the Americans didn't beat the Zero at its own game. They refused to play its game at all. The answer to this question is not about planes. It's about what happens when one side imposes the rules of the fight and the other refuses to fight by them. Part 1. Why the Zero was thought unbeatable. To understand what happened, you have to understand the Zero. And here, it's important not to give in to the temptation to say the Japanese overrated their plane. No, the Zero was exactly what they thought it was, in its own element. Early in the war, it was a nightmare for the Allies. It outmaneuvered everything that flew. It could pull a turn so tight that American fighters simply couldn't stay on its tail. The pilots of Wildcats, Buffaloes, the early machines, everyone who tried to turn with the Zero lost, again and again. And the Zero's reputation became almost supernatural. For 2 years, Japanese aces over China and the Pacific led their enemies by the nose because those enemies didn't understand what they were facing. The Japanese pilot went into battle with a full and well-founded sense of superiority. My plane turns better. I'm trained in close maneuvering combat like no one else. I'll drag the enemy into the merry-go-round, and he's mine. And in this, he was right. In the turning fight, at low speed, he won almost every time. But this miracle of maneuver had a price the Japanese preferred not to think about. To make the Zero so light and nimble, everything unnecessary had been stripped out. The armor behind the pilot's back, the self-sealing tanks that don't catch fire from a single bullet. The Zero was like a racing knife, sharp, light, deadly, and fragile. One good burst, and it went up in flames. But to land that burst, you first had to stop playing by its rules. And this is what the Japanese ace couldn't believe, that you could simply decline his challenge. To understand how the Americans did it, you have to look not at maneuverability. You have to look at the thing the Japanese considered unimportant. Part 2. 2 planes, 2 philosophies. Here, we have to break the first assumption. We're used to thinking the best fighter is the one that turns better, that the most maneuverable one wins. By that logic, the Zero is the best, and the Corsair is worse because in a turning fight, the Zero beats it. But the Americans didn't build the Corsair for the turning fight, and that's everything. The Zero was designed around a single idea: maneuverability at any cost. For it, they sacrificed everything: protection, strength, survivability. The Corsair was designed around a different idea: a huge, powerful engine, speed, rate of climb, firepower, 6 heavy machine guns, and survivability, armor, protected tanks, a rugged airframe so the pilot came home even when shot up. The Japanese asked, "How do I build a plane that outmaneuvers anyone?" The American asked, "How do I build a plane that kills the enemy and brings the pilot back?" These are two different questions, and their answers are opposite. And here's the trick the Japanese didn't see. The Corsair was faster, much faster. It dived better, dropping like a stone, accelerating to a speed the Zero couldn't withstand. It climbed better after that acceleration. So the Corsair had superiority, not in the turn, but in speed and altitude, in energy. And that means one simple thing: whoever is faster and higher chooses whether to fight or not. He can drop from above, strike, and climb away, and the enemy can do nothing because he can't catch him. The Japanese, with his turn, was dangerous in only one case: if you agreed to turn with him. And if you didn't, his maneuverability became useless. You can't spin someone into the merry-go-round who won't get on it. And now all that's left is to understand exactly how the Americans learned not to get on the merry-go-round. Because at first they didn't know how, and they paid for it in blood. Part 3. The tactic that changed everything. Hold on to one thought. It's the heart of this whole video. The Americans beat the Zero not with a new plane, but with a new way to fight, and that way could be explained and handed out to thousands of ordinary pilots. At first it went badly. Young American pilots, meeting the Zero, did what felt natural. They tried to fight it in the turn, face-to-face as they'd been taught, and they died. The Japanese dragged them into the merry-go-round and killed them. As long as the Americans played by the Japanese pilots' rules, they lost. The turning point came when the commander said, "Enough. Never, you hear, never turn with the Zero at low speed. That's his game. There he's a god. Don't go there." And they gave the pilots two simple rules instead of heroics. The first rule: boom and zoom. Altitude is energy. Stay above the enemy. See a Zero, don't turn toward it into a circle. Drop on it from above at enormous speed. Give it one short burst on the pass, and don't brake. Don't stay to turn. Climb away, trading speed back into altitude. From that altitude, drop again. Attack from above, climb away, again from above. The Japanese can't answer because he's lower and slower, and catching a diving Corsair is physically beyond him. The second rule: don't fly alone, fly as a pair, and that pair is inseparable. If a Zero gets on one Corsair's tail, the second turns toward it and fires on the pursuer. The Japanese, chasing one American, flies straight into the second one's guns. They called this pairing the weave, two planes covering each other, braiding together in the air, and now put the whole picture together. The Japanese ace comes to battle ready for his merry-go-round. He looks for the turn, for the close fight where he's king. And the Americans don't give it to him. They strike from above and climb away. There's no merry-go-round. He tries to get on one's tail. His wingman hits him. He can't force the fight he's strong in because the enemy simply refuses to enter it. Do you understand the horror of the Japanese pilot's position? All his skill, years of training in maneuvering combat, was sharpened for one type of fight, for the turn, and they didn't give him the turn. His superiority worked only with the enemy's consent, and the enemy gave no consent. The Japanese brought the world's best turn into a world where no one would turn with him. But why didn't the Japanese adapt? Why didn't they change their tactics in reply? The answer to this question explains why they lost not a battle, but the whole sky. Part 4. The verdict. Let's put it all together. The Japanese fighter pilot, early in the war, was magnificent. His Zero was a miracle of maneuver, his training in close combat the best in the world. In the turn, face-to-face, he beat almost everyone. And that skill lost, not to a more nimble plane, but to an enemy who refused to turn. The Japanese asked the question, "How do I outmaneuver the enemy?" The American asked, "How do I win without entering the maneuvering fight at all?" The first question produced the perfect duelist of the turn. The second produced a tactic, boom and zoom and the weave, that could be handed to thousands of ordinary pilots. And the tactic won. But the main thing is not in that comparison. The main thing is this. The Japanese ace was the perfect weapon for one type of fight, the low-speed turn. All his skill faced one direction, and it was useless against an enemy who didn't enter the turn, but struck from above and climbed away. And there was a second disaster that finished off the Japanese sky. While the Americans trained thousands of new pilots in the new tactic, the Japanese aces died, and there was almost no one to replace them. Japan bet on a few geniuses trained over years. When those geniuses died, half-baked novices came to take their place, and the quality of Japanese pilots collapsed. America bet not on the genius, but on the system, on a plane that forgives mistakes and brings the pilot home, and on a tactic anyone can be taught. You can't mass-produce a genius. A tactic, though, you can. The Japanese ace circling the sky over the Solomons in search of a merry-go-round no one would give him, knew none of this. He knew only that he turned better, that he was a master of close combat, and that the enemy somehow refused to fight fair. He cursed the Americans' cowardice. He couldn't believe that he was beaten, not by greater courage and not by a more nimble plane, but by the refusal to play by his rules. He spent his whole life preparing for the duel of the turn, and against him came those who recognized no turns. They fell from above, struck, and climbed into the heights, out of reach. If this story gave you a new angle on the war in the sky, leave a like. It helps the channel reach those who want to understand history seriously rather than repeat legends. Subscribe if you want the next chapter. And remember this, in battle, the winner isn't always the one more skilled at his own move. Often it's the one who imposes his own rules and refuses to fight by someone else's. The Japanese built the world's best turn. The Americans simply stopped getting into it.